Cool. Hey friends, Nathan Arthur here. I've been getting a lot of comments on my YouTube videos recently about my rig and how I'm running it. So I just wanted to make this quick video explaining how I go about my ambient music, including all of the pieces of the board, how they fit together, potentially why my tone isn't a muffled cluster of grossness. Yeah, this is going to be the first part of 2 videos. One layer is the physical layer, which is all of the physical connections, whereas the second video is going to cover the digital side of the board, which is the other half that makes this board super unique, and kind of approaching on more of a modular synth approach to making music. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. Let's get into it. I'm going to start with my I/O. The Quad Cortex here by Neural DSP is handling all of the I/O on the entire board. You'll see I've got my input here, a second input from my microphone, but the actual guitar tone goes like this. I first of all have a octaver, and then I go into a Timmy for just my basic blank tone, it's kind of that edge of breakup tone. After that, I have 3 distortion pedals that I rarely use with ambient, but I have a Real Deal, which was a capture of a friend's Real Deal, really cool pedal. Then I have the Rodent Drive, which you guys would know what that is if you're on guitars at all. And then I've got a capture of a Silver Klon. That is then going into a gain utility, which is linked to this foot switch. So that's going to kind of be my swells and all of that sort of thing for ambience. After that, I have a looper. And then I have an amp here. If I want my amp pre-effects, I can go into that there. Out of that, I'm headed to row 3 on the Quad Cortex, which is this row. And you'll notice that here is where I send out through my send and return, which is this here on the Quad Cortex. And then I've got my returns. So I'll get to the send and return in a bit, but send, returns, obviously that's going to the rest of the board. I'll just finish up here. I have 2 sets of amps, so if I hit this, you'll notice that those swap. You'll notice that this also becomes stereo, so I've got stereo low gain amps here, and then I hit this and they become stereo high gain amps. Then I've got compressors, a delay, and a reverb. So that's the entire Quad Cortex. This is kind of my tone, what I've been using. So going back to the send here, the send comes out this cable right here. I've got 1 send and then I've got 2 returns on the back. Okay, so send 1 goes out, hits a compressor pedal underneath my board. I don't know if I can get a good view of it, but I'll try. Out of that, it actually goes into this. And so this is the really important piece of my board. I've got 2 of these on my board, and basically they're patch bays. So if you don't know what a patch bay is, I'm just gonna bypass it for now. The signal comes in through here, and I am going to send that signal through this cable, back down through here, and it hits this output. So we're bypassing the entirety of all of this and going straight from the Quad Cortex, looping through this into the Empress reverb. So this is always at the end of my chain. Empress reverb stereo out into the Microchosm, which is the last pedal in my chain. That is then going back up into the returns into the amp. And this really brings me to the main point of the video, which is this and this and this. The reason that I'm able to get such diverse sound is because all of these pedals are not actually in the chain. they're in the chain according to the way that I patch it. So if I want to go straight from the Quad Cortex to the Reverb, I can just bypass the rest of the board. Or if I want to go from the Cortex to, for instance, one of my favorite pedals, the Mood, I would go from the output of the Quad to the input of my Mood Mark II. And then I would grab another one of these, go from the output of Mood Mark II into the input of the Empress, the Microchosm, back into this and out, right? So this creates a really flexible and dynamic system because I can have any pedals in the chain that I want, in any order that I want them, without ripping this up, changing where all of my TRS signals go for MIDI, changing where all the power needs to be if there are power needs for different pedals specific. So I've been getting a lot of people that will ask why my tone is so clean. Am I using a buffer? The answer is no, I'm not using a buffer in any of this. I'm just keeping my runs as short as I can. For instance, this run here, this output to the input is this long. And then these are all balanced cables, so I'm not going to be losing as much fidelity with these as I would if they were all unbalanced. So this system is based off of modular synthesis, where you can put anything in the chain anywhere you want. And that's not even mentioning this. This is the other piece. These 4 inputs here all feed into the 4 in and outs of this Plaudesque matrice. So with the matrice, it's not the most simple to explain just because of the way that I have it set up. It makes sense to me, you can believe me. Just know that it is a very modular and freeing setup for me, because what I can do is I can have my output and input 4. So this will usually go to the output and input of my Quad. Okay, so now I have pass-through audio on output 4, right? So input 4 is here, output 4 is here. So then I would have this turned up and it just sounds like a normal guitar. If I want to send my guitar out, for instance, output 1 here, I would then link to the Mood. And so now, if I turn this up, I would then be sending out my guitar signal to output 1, which would be the Mood. Then I can send my Mood back in to input 1, which is this row. And then on output 4, I can turn this up. And now this, the Mood, will be routed in parallel with my original guitar signal back into the Reverb, into the Microchosm, and out. And so you don't necessarily need to understand that. If you want, I can do a bit more in-depth video. But basically, the point of this is that I have 4 channels of audio that can each be processed individually by individual chains of pedals on this board. It's very, very convenient, very modular, and allows me to have a really different experience playing guitar than I've ever had. It gives me a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to just do whatever I want. I would highly encourage you to give something like this a shot. I don't know what that necessarily means for you, but there is a lot of creative freedom in being able to hot swap guitar pedals with, for instance, something like this. I wouldn't buy this necessarily until you've tried just hot swapping pedals and seeing if you like it. I personally really enjoy it, find it very fun, and obviously the ambience that I make out of this can sound pretty unique. I very rarely plug in to this board and find the same sort of sound. It usually sounds pretty wildly different. So like I said, the next video I will showcase the Zoia more, because I'm actually not using it to process a whole lot of audio. I'm mostly using it for CV information and MIDI, which is another piece of what makes this board so unique and special. Until then, I hope that you guys found this helpful. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those in the comments. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.